In some ways, it's thought, at least by some, to be bold, because it involves the potential for a constitutional amendment centered around what's happening in Washington now. You have the potential for a new Supreme Court, U.S. Supreme Court justice to be appointed, which puts the court in a place where they could eviscerate a woman's right to choose, access to affordable health care in many ways, with the potential Roe versus Wade, which has been with us for decades, to be in jeopardy. And with that, as a candidate, I stand here to tell you that I would and be willing to support a constitutional amendment here in Connecticut. Again, a bold action, a bold step, one that you don't take lightly. You pass laws, I guess, frequently, but a constitutional amendment is above and beyond that. In order to protect, no matter what happens in Supreme Court or with federal laws, would in Connecticut continue to be embodied, enshrined in our Constitution, a woman's basic right, a right to choose for privacy, which now is represented by Roe versus Wade and by state statutes that exist now. So the jeopardy of state statutes, obviously, is they're more vulnerable than any constitutional amendment would be. So this is something we've had for decades, and would want to ask other candidates, those that are thinking about running for governor on the Republican side, on the Democratic side, and others, where they stand on this. What is the real commitment to this, which I think is a basic element of human rights, referred to often as a woman's right to choose and a woman's right to privacy. Along with that, I would just point out this kind of backdrop. There's 9 other states that have this in their state constitution now. I think the one that's been talked about more recently is the state of Maryland. And I think it was, I don't know if it was a year or two later, I didn't check the date. New York, Governor Cuomo had proposed the same or similar for New York, for the New York State Constitution. So although this is not completely widespread across the country, there are several. We'd be the 9th state apparently to do this, and I think it puts that protection in place that would be long-term on this. Now, along with this, I think there's some things that should be mentioned that are on the forefront as we talk now, with regards to this same challenge to what we call human rights, a woman's right, whether it's to affordable and accessible health care or to information about what is and should be affordable and accessible health care in Connecticut. Some of that's in the form kind of disguised in federal regulations with gag orders, as we've commonly referred to as a gag order, with ties to funding. So take Planned Parenthood, who is the primary recipient of direct federal funding on opportunities for information and access to affordable health care for women on this, that they would be forced under, if it goes forward, a gag order. So the doctors and healthcare providers wouldn't even be able to provide information about that as an option. But what are options for an unwanted pregnancy, a termination of a pregnancy, even in the case of a health challenge to a woman's life, or a pregnancy as a result of a crime, or any of the scenarios were not even carved out of this. So you have that challenge now, which is one that's on the forefront, which could put in jeopardy, Planned Parenthood said, put in jeopardy their even ability to access those funds. And then on the backdrop, you see things that are happening even in Texas, where the regulations that they're putting in place are looking to curtail the affordability and accessibility through regulations that basically say you have to have a certain size facility. You just have to have a certain size hallway in these facilities, which they're not regulating to other healthcare providers. With that as a backdrop, I want to reiterate, and then certainly open up to questions. My call, I know it's considered bold. For us in Connecticut, we've been a leader in many ways, and we have some protections in our state statutes. But if we have to take the bold step and ask the other candidates to let you know where they stand, now before primary day, the Republicans, Democrats, and others, on a constitutional amendment if we need it, and where they stand on fighting for a woman's right to choose, basic human rights, women's rights to affordable, accessible health care here in Connecticut, and to follow the lead if we need to take the actions, and an extensive, by the way, for a constitutional amendment. So I'll stop there and see if there's any questions.
So you'll feel that the codification of Roe is enough, that it could be challenged if something happens at the federal level. That's your view.
this is a huge challenge, and this Trump administration is taking no prisoners, so to speak. You know, they are going for the extreme, and they'll do it bluntly and boldly with control that court with this new appointment in many ways, but even subtly with these regulations, how they can put a healthcare providers in a position where they can't even. By the way, I think it borderlines on malpractice, this gag order thing. So no, I don't. I always think a statute is susceptible at some point to being changed, repealed, and I think embodying it in the Constitution gives us the type of protection we'd have for decades and decades, hopefully
So
forever.
you run the risk, though, because the constitutional amendment would have to go out to the voters. I mean, you run the risk that it wouldn't happen, that Connecticut voters lose.
I think, of course, there's no guarantee. I think, though, that the backdrop, if you look at some of the support that this has had in Connecticut, some of it even on the Republican side, if you look at some of the Republican leadership. So I think we're a much more progressive, I would think, more conscious state. So my sense is I wouldn't propose it if I didn't think certainly we'd have to get behind it and advocate for it, but that it would be successful.
Do you think Connecticut?
And then the timing of it, as you know, constitutional amendments are somewhat rare. It's got to go through the legislature, et cetera, et cetera. If it didn't get 75%, then you have to skip a year and go again. So it's a long process.
Absolutely. And again, the front battle might be right now. I mean, today, as we stand here, is on making sure that what we have on access to affordable health care doesn't get the rug pulled out from under it on funding and gag orders and these regulations, these targeted regulations. But at the same time, I do think we should commit to, and I'm willing to stand here today, even though it's a long-term commitment and a bold one, whether it takes 2 years or 3 years, certainly it's worth the effort. It's going to take that type of effort. So yes, I understand the dynamics of it.
So this is
early on, but if you talk to the legislative leadership at all about whether this is something they're interested in?
No, I think the timing for that would be after January, as we head to the next session. Talk about it now, start to build a coalition if we can. I'd like to hope that the leadership would, if we need to, entertain it in the next session. So it would be a January issue.
I believe your opponent in the primary made some reference last week to the fact that he believes he's a feminist. Is that why you're coming out with this position today?
You know, I don't follow everything he says. He changes on a lot of different things, so I don't really know. I would ask him, though, to join on, if that means that he's an advocate for, as I am, a constitutional amendment in Connecticut. You'll have a chance, I think, later today to ask him that question. I'd hope he'd join on, in whatever way he describes himself, to support this. I think the boldest effort that we can make in Connecticut to protect a woman's right to choose and not be eviscerated or be subject to vulnerability by the Trump administration once again.
Also, on the everything you're saying here there's an assumption that Roe is going to be overturned. Other people have been put on the court, as you know, and have not done what people thought they would do. In other words, the element of surprise. Yeah. Do you believe in that at all? In other words, there's other justices that have gone on. Everyone says there's no doubt he's going to vote like X, and he votes Y. So sometimes it's a surprise, and sometimes the people who appoint them get mad at it.
I think that's true. So far, we haven't seen that with the Trump administration and their appointments. As a matter of fact, it's been just the opposite. They've usually been kind of presented much more moderate, let's say, and have come out more extreme. I think that's happened with a number of appointments that I don't think we need to get into. So, look, I would hope that was the case. But as we stand here today, the threat's there. This administration is going to be in office in Washington for whatever it is, a few more years. And under that, we don't know what can happen. I know Ginsburg said she's going to stay on the court for 5 more years. But this is not a snapshot in time that's going to get any better, at least under the Trump administration, for the next couple of years. So I can't rely on that. I won't rely on it. I think that we should begin this process, as you pointed out. It's not going to happen overnight if we're able to accomplish it. It's going to take, as you say, the voters. That's an effort. It could take 2 sessions in the General Assembly. But I think that's the backdrop on which we should proceed, or at least I am, as a candidate. Ask the others to do it as we turn the corner past November, certainly past the primary, past November, and into January.
I mean, the Republicans are likely going to say, this is the Democrats once again focusing on a national issue that we've already addressed in Connecticut. We're not talking about the economy. We're not talking about taxes, etc.
Yeah, and I get that. I mean, they want to deflect from what it really is about, and some of them are out of touch. I mean, clearly out of touch. At least from the world that I live in, the city I live in, and the people that I fight for every day. We're talking about accessible, affordable health care for people who have the least means, sometimes rely on public transportation, don't have access to the best doctors, the most expensive doctors, or private health care plans. And that's a whole world that, frankly, the
So you
Republicans
think this
just don't care.
disproportionately affects people in places
Absolutely.
like Bridgeport?
Well, people who have the least means that are struggling, I think it does. Yes, I think it does. I think the gag order when you go in, where you're not able to be fully informed about opportunities or rights that you have under privacy, again, I think it's bordering on malpractice, but I think it certainly does disproportionately affect certainly accessible, affordable healthcare aspects.